Hello and welcome to the first March panel and workshop, and we're really excited to be able to present this particular topic because it feels like a lot of our conversations have been about the technical side of how to do something, particularly put on a show, cameras, lighting, and that kind of thing. And we've also talked about health, mental health, physical health, and we will continue to have those conversations. But tonight is really going to be talking about the tools that are available and the ways to use them, because really the embracing of this new form of normal as best we can will lead to our success in that area. And in that particular interest, we're going to be talking specifically about monetizing your presence on the internet. Before we get into the panelists and start walking through the evening, I did want to introduce myself. I'm Ethan Baird from NERFA. I wanted to let people know about some of the various services that we have available coming up this month, both in services and in other programming. Next week, we have two different peer groups. On Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a performers peer group. This is a group really dedicated to sort of the mental health side of giving artists a chance to get together, talk about their challenges, talk about the hurdles, and sort of be able to have a group of peers to share that within. On Tuesday, we have another peer group. This one is for presenters, whether you be a house show presenter, coffee house, church coffee house, festival, it doesn't matter. This is a chance to get together, commiserate, talk about the challenges and some of the successes that people are finding in utilizing online forms of entertainment, of getting shows out there, of helping performers and basically get back to what our presenters are used to doing, which is presenting great music. So if you're interested in either one of those, we'll have more information throughout the night. It'll be in the little doobly-doo at the bottom of doobly-doo. Sorry, I can't things backwards, so I've got to. Anyway, it'll be at the bottom of the screen, and you can check that out. If you're interested in either one of them, either email performer@nerfa.org or presenter@nerfa.org, and you'll get an invite to it. It's a wonderful sort of Zoom opportunity. In 2 weeks from today, which would be the 18th, we have another panel. We're going to be celebrating Women's Month, and we're going to be doing it with a panel led by the wonderful Abby Gardner, called Women Take the Lead, which is really going to be a discussion about while there is better parity in some areas of our community, one of the areas that has consistently sort of had a discrepancy is in representation in instrumentalists, in the guitarists and that particular side of things. So Abby is going to be talking about her experience sort of becoming the premier dobro player for much of the folk community, as well as trying to encourage other people to give it a shot and get in that space. So we're really looking forward to that programming. Outside of that, one last announcement before we get into it, which is the Spotlight program, which we did a little commercial for before. It's part of our partnership with B&H, who has been remarkably generous and caring in sponsoring a $250 prize for any artist in the Northeast region to submit videos, and the top three every other month will get that gift certificate, as well as a video having three prominent members of the folk community who are the judges talk about how wonderful and great you are. So we hope that any artists out there participate. We're really proud of it. I believe not just the winners, but the entire group of 40 artists that submitted had over 400 listens, which felt really good because in a lot of cases that was more than tripling the original amount. Lastly, I should say who the winners of our first ever are, which was Abby Gardner, Tara Spencer, and Gangster Grass. So tip of the hat to those wonderful artists for the wonderful job they did. Highly recommend that you check out their videos. If you want more information on that program, please go to nerfa.org. And that concludes my part of the evening where I talk about the organization. And I am, as it turns out, the moderator of tonight, which means I get to introduce to you three very wonderful people. And I am lucky enough to know all three of these folks. So I guess I'm going to introduce them by how long I've known them. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite people in the community. And I described this person probably a decade ago as the hardest working person in folk music. And frankly, I think she's working harder now than she was then. So I want to introduce my friend, Rebecca Loby.
Hello. Very kind of you, sir. Thank you.
Very true, though. And another wonderful gentleman who I met at NERFA, I believe 3 years ago or maybe 4 years ago. Time is linear, but man, does it feel like it all runs together. And he is a remarkable just wealth of knowledge when it comes to the ways that artists can interact with the sort of internet. And he was that guy before any of this happened. So to be able to have him be part of this conversation means the world to me. He's also a great singer-songwriter and a wonderful gentleman, Mr. Chris Robley.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it was 4 years ago, but yeah, time's a mystery now.
You know,
Time is an illusion.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. And lastly is a gentleman that I've only known for about 6 or 7 months. When this all when COVID started happening, we all were trying to figure out what the new world was going to look like for performers in particular. There's a tool that a lot of us sort of found along the way called StreamYard. And in its early days, as people started discovering it, it was a real godsend. It took a lot of the heavy lifting behind making events like this run, and it simplified and streamlined them. And through my involvement in getting to know that tool and the community around it, I met this wonderful gentleman who basically has put a tremendous amount of thought and care into the world of virtual presentation. He's actually pretty good at real life presentation as well. So I'm really excited to have Dylan Shinholzer join us.
What's up, my man? How are you?
How you doing?
I'm dandy, not a complaint in the world.
I'm glad to hear it. I like you. I think you're actually the first person that's used a virtual background, but it works. I like it. It's
look, I gotta step my game up. It's otherwise I just have this ugly yellow wall behind me. So and the rest of my craziness going on with all my whiteboards. So figured this step it up a little bit.
I find myself in the Zoom hell of reality that we all live in constant Zooming.
Yes.
A lot of the business that I do tends to be with people in Arizona. And most of the time they're all talking about how cold it is because it hit 65. So I have a blue screen, an active video of it snowing that as soon as they start talking about that, I toss it up. But anyway, I wanted to give you guys sort of a chance to really introduce yourselves, and I may as well start in the order that I introduced you. Miss Rebecca Loby, would you like to say a thing or two about you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rebecca Loby. I have been performing in the folk world probably since 2008 or 9, which is when I first stumbled into the Kerrville Folk Festival. I went on my first tour when my first record came out in 2004, started trying to make a living as a full-time musician in 2006, failed miserably, crawled back home with my tail between my legs and worked 100 odd jobs in between getting a new record together and getting back out on the road as a musician, and spent about 5 years trying to make it work. And at some point in late 2010, I looked around and realized that I hadn't had another job in a year and that I was a full-time singer-songwriter, and it was very exciting. And I didn't want to say it out loud because I was afraid I would jinx it, but it's been 10 years since then, and it's holding. So I'm glad to say that I'm Rebecca Loby. I'm from Austin, Texas. I'm a full-time singer-songwriter, and it's very nice to be talking to y'all tonight. I think Ethan's muted.
Oh, Ethan, I think you're muted.
You know, that is the quote of 2020. I'm trying to make it not the quote of 2021. And, man. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Chris Robley. I live in Maine, so I laugh at all those people in Arizona. They don't know what cold is. But prior to living in Maine, I lived in Oregon, where I was in an indie rock, indie pop kind of band. This is a long time ago, and I needed a place to sell my CD. So lo and behold, in my backyard, there was CD Baby, based in Portland, Oregon, where I lived. And they were a CD distributor at the time. And I begged the folks there for a job for a really long time. And finally, they let me in the door. And since I've been there, CD Baby became, the first indie distributor to get music onto iTunes and sort of do the digital distribution thing. It then grew into streaming, YouTube monetization, social video monetization, sync licensing, publishing, a whole bunch of other things. So I can speak to the monetization aspect of this conversation in a professional capacity. That's why I'm here, I think.
Also for the company, but yes.
Yeah, the
primarily.
company, right?
I think that's why I'm here.
I'm here for the double. How did you say it? Double key.
Doobly doo and the woobly woo. I was just laughing behind the scenes at all that.
Well, may as well let you laugh in front of the scenes. Dylan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Dylan Schinholzer. I years ago started a company. One of my first businesses was a marketing company and management company for artists. I had a big passion I saw a need of creatives not having the business sense that I had, and I liked creative, but I'm not creative. So I was like, how can I mesh the two? And I started a company, did well with that. Moved into a marketing arena and helping more folks just monetize different businesses as well as artists. And then now what I do is literally live events. I own a company outside of everything I do with a company called ViewStub. I own a company called Experience Events where we put on live events. ViewStub lets me do virtual events. I mesh them two together and I help artists all over the country and all types of events really at the end of the day monetize online presences, in-person events and presence and everything in between. So that's what I do. That's why I'm assuming I'm here.
Again, primarily also the company, but awesome. Thank you guys so much for introducing yourself. And I don't want to, we'll probably just chat because you're wonderful people. And I think all three, well, no, Chris, you and Rebecca have met before, right? I think maybe. No.
Monday, at least.
Yeah.
We met on Monday.
Well,
I just felt my heart like drop because I fully introduced myself to him from scratch on Monday. I was like, oh my God, what did I do?
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, I think, for anyone that's ever been on a stage where we've done that entire, like, hi, I'm X. Who are you? The person you met 5 times. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good to know. So, yeah, it's an across the. I think that's a human experience.
Stayed at my house once. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
cool. Sorry.
That's right. I actually at one point I was doing sort of a digital life cleanup, going through a bunch of old files, and I actually had video from a house concert you played at my house that I ran into the other day, and I was like, should I throw it? Nah, I'm not going to throw it at you. That'd be
that was
too
so
mean.
much fun.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But let's get into the actual meat and bones and all that fun stuff. I mix metaphors way too much, so if I get bizarre, stop me and have me explain. But let's sort of start with, I think at this point, what people are most, I don't know, comfortable is the right word, but people are most familiar with the notion of an online show. But generally speaking, in our community, when people talk about an online show, there are 3 options, but the one that most people think about are sort of tip-based performance, where you get up and you toss up like a PayPal link or something like that. There are, of course, other ways of going about that. And, 2 of those, when I say 3, is sort of the 3 that I tend to think about. There's the just open to the world tip jar, which is really, in my mind, kind of a virtual busking, for lack of a better term. And then there is fan-based performance, which really is when you get into sort of the Patreon side of the world, which Rebecca is going to talk about a bunch tonight because she's put a lot of thought and good work to that side of her life. And then there's sort of this third thing, which I don't know a lot of people in our community that have really done, which is the notion of running a virtual event like a in-person event and having ticketed events. And that's really where Dylan's going to come in, because that's kind of his bailiwick, his wheelhouse. And he can sort of talk through some of the strengths and weaknesses that come with that. So throwing that out there as sort of a framework for us to have a conversation, why don't let's skip over the tip thing, because I think people understand that. It's a pretty straightforward thing, I'm going to hit go live and I'm just going to pick up my guitar. I'm going to play with a little banner, or the person that, writes on the piece of cardboard and holds it up in front of the camera over on the side,
And it's
pay here.
backwards.
Oh
And
yes,
it's
yeah, which is
backwards.
always I think that was for the first couple months of this, like it was an
It was
80% chance that the sign was backwards. My
Yeah.
favorite was the people that realized it was backwards, and instead of figuring out how to reverse the camera, they just wrote it backwards, and you could clearly tell it looked like someone was around with their left hand.
Yep.
But anyway, so let's talk about sort of that idea of membership focused performance and the systems in place for that. And given that I sort of threw Patreon out there as one of the primary examples, Rebecca, do you want to kind of lead that discussion?
Well, I'm always happy to talk about Patreon. I absolutely love it. I have been a creator on Patreon since 2017, and I don't necessarily consider Patreon to be a form of online performance so much as it's sort of a membership-based fan funding model that's ongoing. So I think of it more as an alternative to something like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, where when you're fan funding a project, it's one big campaign where you are funding one big project and you get your audience invested in that. They buy into it, they support it, they're excited. And that's great. And you raise that money in a completely different way, and then you spend that money in a completely different way. But with something like Patreon or with a monthly subscription, PayPal setup that you could do on your own website, that is more bringing people in behind the scenes of your career in an ongoing way and sharing with them what makes the most sense to you to share. Some people share demos of new songs. Some people do a fully produced song each month. Some people will perform exclusively for their patrons. Some people write long-winded essays. That's me. Or put up chord charts for songs they've written, and show behind the scenes footage from their studio exploits, et cetera, et cetera. And tons of people use Patreon who aren't musicians at all. And I think there are a lot of different things you can offer to patrons. I'll skip to the last page and tell you that in my experience, most people who join an artist on Patreon are primarily in it to support that artist and to give them a buck or $3 or $5 or $10 each month. And for that reason, I encourage every artist who's launching into Patreon to find work they're already creating and ways that they can share that, or things that they need to make anyhow, rather than create content specifically for Patreon, because that's not what your patrons want you to do. They want to be involved in what you're already doing. They don't want you to spend a bunch of energy making stuff just for them. That being said, I'll throw this out there early. I spent some time over the summer when in the early days of lockdown, and I wrote an ebook with all of my thoughts on launching a Patreon page, because I do get a number of emails every week from friends and musicians asking for my thoughts on starting a Patreon page. And so I compiled all of my email responses and put it into a big ebook. It has a table of contents. It's pretty easy to navigate, and it's got my full launch plan that I use to launch my own page and that I have set up for other friends. It's got a timeline. It's got a list of all the assets that you'll want to get together. And if that's helpful to you, it's free. It's on my website. You're welcome to share it with friends. I just want to get it out there, and it's got pretty much everything I could possibly say about Patreon in it.
Awesome. And we've got that up on the screen right now, the link to find that. And it's also was tossed in the chat. So if you don't want to write it down, I understand. I've definitely done that. Tried to quickly write down links only to have it go away right as I'm finishing the last 5 letters. So the person that was just about to be done, I apologize, took it off. But it is in the chat for everything. So with that experience, I think Patreon really has become sort of the ubiquitous form of this kind of fundraising.
Yeah, they won the beta VHS war for sure.
Yeah, they did. They really did. In a good way. I like what you said specifically about what it feels like most of the fans getting involved in that are looking for, which isn't really the exclusivity of a piece of art, but more the exclusivity or the intimacy of watching art being created or being feeling like they're part of it. So
it's an interesting balance, because I have 350 patrons, and there are 20 to 40 of them who open every single thing I send. Like every single thing. They're diehard fans. They're keeping track of how much of whatever I have made. They want to hear the newest songs. They're really into the covers. They're really into the cover song selection. They get, they download all the album art that I put up. They're just really, really fully into it, and they're invested. And then on the other side, there are probably 250 people who never even click on the emails, which sounds a little crushing, but on the other hand, they just want a way to show me their support, and they'll occasionally maybe browse over to Patreon. So I need to make content that feels extremely worth it to that small portion of people who are diehard opening everything, and also be, how do I say it, be responsible with my energy, knowing that 80% of people aren't actually opening what I'm sending. So it's an interesting balance for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that I find sort of fascinating, particularly about the Patreon model, is with a number of the artists I've talked to, you included, for artists, the phrase that I've heard, which I don't know why it never really struck me, but I'm hearing artists say things like, I have a salary for the first time in my life. Like, I know a monthly income it is a baseline. Mm-hmm. So I think in particular, the idea that you're talking about as far as Patreon versus, say, a one-off, a Kickstarter, a GoFundMe, Indiegogo, I'm going to run out of them, but I think that's a good start. I know that the nature of that, it's kind of, and this is going to lead into sort of the next part of the discussion, is the idea of doing an event because an event is special, which Kickstarter kind of represents by saying, this is I need to be able to do this specific thing. You're not donating to Rebecca Lobe, the person. You're donating to this project of Rebecca Lobe's. Whereas whereas Patreon is really, you are donating to this artist for them to be able to create the art that you like or love. And along those lines, I'm actually going to pass the ball over to Dylan as we talk about the notion of sort of the tip-based version of shows, or the Patreon-based version of accessibility. You kind of represent that Kickstarter type model where there is a level of exclusivity or not necessarily exclusivity, but there is a specific, this is an event, you are paying for an event that you kind of push. And you want to sort of talk through what you think makes the difference. I don't necessarily think one's right, one's wrong, but I'd love to hear the reasoning behind one over the other. Yeah,
it's the answer. It's 2021. The answer is not an or thing for artists. It's an and. So they need to be able to develop a strategy for both that community aspect of Patreon, that's membership and monthly and coming in, and that's a good thing for your bankroll, because, like you said, you have money coming in every month. That's a good thing. That allows you to then go on and do live experiences, because people need experiences. I often differentiate events from experiences, and that's a whole other talk for another day. But from an event aspect, you're providing them an experience, a one-time experience that people live for. We all live for events and interactions and things like that in real time. And where maybe Patreon is a monthly thing, you put up, content, you're documenting the process instead of just creating that content, you're documenting what you're doing. An event is a real engaging, interactive experience, whether it's in person, which I can't wait to get back to, or in this virtual world, which we're talking about now. Either way, people want to be able to interact in real time. That's why live streaming is so powerful, right? What we're doing now, you could flash up a comment from someone, I can talk to them in real time. Same thing for an artist, right? I can go on and do a 4, 5, 6, 7 song virtual experience in a concert, and I can interact with the guest in between. I can have them ask me questions. A lot of this stuff that, Rebecca's doing monthly in a Patreon, I can do in an event, create that experience, and then also, have that double down in my community as well. I think it goes back to, though, it's not an or thing, it's an and. You need to be doing both and figuring out how you can monetize. Why I don't like tip jar concerts is it's literally like basically setting up on the side of the street and putting a sign that says tip me because I'm playing, which I think it's valuable, it's useful, and people do it all the time and make good money. But at the same time, I want to help artists value their time and value the experience that they're providing, which means you need to give me money to show up. I'm going to give you a really cool experience And I believe that it's worth X, 5, 10, 15. I've seen them go up as upwards of $25 and $35 in a virtual space because they give a live meet and greet or things like that, where that's maybe harder in an in-person world. But I can right now in a virtual space, I can do a concert, I can do a Q&A session and things like that, add in some behind the scenes of me like getting ready, tuning the guitar or whatever it looks like. But then I can also offer a VIP experience where we get to interact just like me and you are now. Right. And that's powerful. It goes back to the community aspect. But yeah, so the community aspect, and it allows you to continue to cultivate that community that you're building over on Patreon and these other communities. Because at the end of the day, an event is just for that community. Right. I believe in communities are built off beliefs and communities are built off culture, and cultures are just metaphorical ecosystems of belief. So if they're all, and they create that community. So I just want to create, that community together, interact with them. And it just so happens as a musician, it's because of me, right? I'm not usually a musician, but I'm usually behind the scenes. But that's what I like to do and help artists do, not only for themselves by booking them at my events and virtual events, but also empowering them to take the kind of the reins in their own hands. I like turning creatives into business-minded folks where they, I always get them backwards, but left brain and right brain. I like to be able to balance it out and be able to help, the entertainers and creatives think a little bit more business-like. And I think, valuing your time and it's charging an upfront price for what you do is, and because it's valuable, it provides a service because it engages and entertains that person is valuable. And I think it's, always value your time.
There's also something sort of interesting to the notion, just to pick the idea that you're sort of presenting in maybe it's the same idea, but in a different framework, is the nature of your audience is a little different for these different things. So Patreon by its nature is it is focused on your core fan base. Mm-hmm. It's focused on the people that have said, this person is worth X dollars a month to me, no matter what. I want this. I believe in this person. And that's a wonder, man. I think every artist I know wants to have that kind of relationship with a fan base, but you have the challenge, particularly in the virtual space, is not just playing to the fan base, but getting attention outside of a fan base.
Yeah.
And the notion of a virtual event versus a sort of the intimacy of a pre-existing fan artist relationship kind of allows that particular side of the marketing. So I think this is a great sort of beginning of this part of the conversation, but I want to keep moving on in the topics to include our final speaker, who has so much to say in a very specific side of the world that I think our community in general knows exists, but I won't throw my community under the bus. I'll throw myself under the bus. Spotify, for the longest time, I had people telling me that I really need to use Spotify for probably 10 years, and I humbugged it till the end of time because they don't pay artists well, and bah humbug, and I want to own my music locally, and this, that, the other thing. That being said, I know people that did the same thing to VHS. I know people that did the same thing to DVDs, and perhaps I should get over myself a little bit and look at this tool that is probably pretty clearly here for a good period of time at least, and figure out how to make it work for me. And Chris, tell me what to do.
Well, first of all, way to assume the whole debt of your community just on you as a person. So you could take the bullet. Okay, I probably have a lot to say. I did one thing about the live event thing. I'll try to be quick. I feel like there's a few different ways to treat content, experiences, concerts, music as sacred, and one is to keep it exclusive, and then oftentimes the barrier you need to overcome to acquire the exclusive thing is to pay. And so that's, that like when you buy a vinyl record, you're way more inclined to put it on and have a special listening experience because you sacrifice to get it. And so you're going to be, whatever, psychologically primed to experience it as sacred art, as opposed to Spotify, which is the more, whatever, passive. It can put you in a mode where listening becomes throwaway and more a utility rather than an art. But I think with live streaming concerts, like another way to imply sacred or special is even in the tipping realm to do it regularly on a scheduled, dedicated thing. And I think of like Joe Pug's Sunday songs or whatever he calls it. It's free. I can tune in and tune out whenever I want. So it has that casual sort of tipping quality, but the fact that he does it every Sunday, it still feels special to me. And I know if I am in, if I've got the time, I can dig in the way I might if I had paid for it. Anyways, that's just a quick thought to say that when you see an artist committing to something as a real, regular thing on a regular schedule, it can imply some of that sacred thing that you feel like you're getting when you pay for something.
Totally.
Absolutely. And Joe's a great example. Another person that comes to mind in that specific space is Adam Ezra, who I believe is currently at concert 365, meaning he has played a full year of hour-long concert every day, including through himself having COVID. And has, through that process, built an audience of about 500 people every night, no matter what, that show up. And he's done that on Facebook, which from a monetization perspective is a challenge, which gets into the tool side. But, the strategy I think that you're getting to, Chris, is the regularity of concerts to some extent. You use the word sacred, and that makes me think particularly of ritual, and the nature of ritual and the power of ritual comes through repetition of ritual. So there is some kind of connection there, but good point. I really like it. I don't know if you would like to allow me to now very awkwardly transition you back to Spotify.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here, go for it, brother.
Well, I was about to say real quick, it goes back to the point of it's still an and thing. I think artists need to figure out how they can do it all and make them each their own exclusive experience. So I wanted to touch that before I forgot it because I have a terrible memory. But let's talk Spotify because I'm really interested too.
Great point. And I popped up the Honey Badger's comment about Joe Pug basically saying that he's enjoying the streaming version, what he's doing so much he's going to continue it. I think that's a really healthy thing for people to be thinking right now. Isn't, oh God, I can't wait till things go back to exactly the way they were and I can forget everything that's happened in a year, but rather, oh God, when things go back to the way they were, how great is it going to be when I get back on the road, but I still have the salary that I built up from Patreon, and I still have the ability to do this online thing. This is an ability to increase our reach and our range. It isn't a substitute so much. Anyway, that being said, now that we've all interrupted Chris, including Chris, back to Chris.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know how many folks in the Nerfa community are still resistant to the streaming. I mean, like you said, it doesn't pay much per engagement, per listen. Yes. We're past the ownership phase. Very few people want to own anything. I don't want to store files on my computer. I don't want to manage files. I don't want your CDs. Like I might, if I really, really love a band, I'll buy their vinyl and maybe never even open it. I'll still listen on Spotify. So ownership, except to your true fans, is over. It's about usage. It's about I don't want your CD, baby. Good one. It stands for completely digital, baby, now. Okay. So in the digital sphere of monetizing music, there are a few ways you can treat this. There's kind of passive monetization, which is about setting yourself up to collect either ad revenue or per stream revenue when people out there in the world are using your music. And that's a good thing. You don't want to be guarded about, about people spreading your songs on YouTube. If someone, throws one of your songs into their wedding video and they put it up on YouTube, that's something to celebrate. They love your music enough, and you can monetize it through Content ID to collect ad revenue. There's also, what's the flip side of passive? Active is more sort of the active streaming engagement you can drive by encouraging your fan base to go to their preferred platform, whether it's Apple Music or Spotify, Amazon Music, to hear your stuff. The thing about Spotify, I think, is that they were very early and probably best at giving artists tools that to some degree give them the ability to shape their destiny on that platform. And it's still difficult, it still requires work, but they give you an awful lot of data, an awful lot of customization options, to have an active presence there. And then when you combine that with how their algorithm functions, the more you push on the active sense, the more the passive consumption of your music and all the monetization possibilities that come with it becomes a realistic thing. So with I could talk about this for a long time, so I don't know where we want to go exactly.
Okay. We'll get into having an open conversation among the four of it with it, but frankly, you are the master of this particular thing, so I'm going to give you the big head for a while. We're going to
all right,
like this.
Yeah,
we're listening.
So just like anything about your music, the responsibility is on you to drive interest. The more you can get your existing audience very early, like the first 3 days of a release, it's super important for Spotify's algorithm. So you want to get all that energy, like harness your existing fan base to consume your music very quickly when it's when you have a new single or a new album. The other thing you want to do, if possible, is drive advertising. Like run a Facebook ad, run an Instagram ad, spend money to get people, targeted people, but people that might not know your music, to Spotify early within the first 3 days. And if you do that often enough, by which I mean release music pretty frequently, maybe every 8 weeks or 6 weeks or 3 months, whatever, it feels realistic for your own creative schedule. Commit to frequent output on Spotify. And every time, if you put that same amount of energy into kind of early engagement, then what happens is eventually the algorithm takes over. So I think a lot of people get a little bit like, well, why would I spend a bunch of money to create Facebook ads or Instagram stories ads that get people to Spotify, and I'm literally spending 30 times more on that result than I'm earning back in a stream? Yes, that's frustrating, but also the goal is not to do that once, is to do it several times, so that eventually the algorithm takes over, as well as each time you're building your Spotify following, which, if people don't know, you have a guaranteed means of reaching that following every time you put out a new song. So, through their direct pitching tool in Spotify for Artists. So it's a little bit of like your own effort and how their system functions. Put out stuff a lot, put in a ton of work a handful of times, and eventually the results kind of happen on their own to some extent.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Something you had mentioned sort of right now, and that you also touched on when we were chatting on Monday, was about, releasing music frequently, releasing singles prior to an album. And something, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is there a limit to how many songs you can release in the lead up to a record as a single?
There is not a
You can do all 10
limit.
songs?
Yeah, you can do all 10 songs. That's fine. The only thing is that they do have a limit for how many songs you can pitch through their direct pitching tool per, I think it's every 4 weeks, something like that. So, you can't do all of them in 3 months. You might need to do 10 months worth of singles that way. But yeah, you can totally do that.
Interesting. I mean, I think that's, given the current climate and the way that you get to harness that energy from Spotify directly to your fans and using their pitching tool, I think that makes a lot of sense. And when I realized that, it made me realize why people seem to be switching to a more singles driven model for releasing music.
There's also something called a waterfall release, which is you put out a single, and then, a month and a half later, you put out another single, but it has that earlier song sort of attached to it as a 2-song release. Then you follow up with a 3-song release, then a 4-song. Eventually it gets to the point where it's, technically an EP, and then shows up in your album discography on Spotify. And then at that point, maybe it just should live as an EP, but you kind of cumulatively grow the album.
No, it's funny while you were talking about this. I know there are some artists in our greater community, in particular, that have really started embracing this notion of constant, or not constant, but rather curated, timed release process. And one of the best artists I've seen do that and maintain to that regularity, because I mean that's a grind. If you're going to commit yourself to writing, recording, and putting out a song every month, that isn't a small task. One of the bands that I've seen do that particularly well this last year has been the Big Little Lions folks, and that's Helen Austin, who's in the room with us right now, jumping in. I just wanted to recognize what they're doing. So go ahead.
Oh, just another thing, another complaint I hear. I feel like I'm on Spotify defense mode
No,
right now, but,
I purposefully put you in that position only because I know you're comfortable in that position.
Well, so a lot of artists, particularly in folk Americana, have this attitude of like, don't expect me to put out a song every month or every 2 months. Like, I'm an artist, man. I make an album. Cool. Make your album and then be friggin' patient. Put a song out once in a while from that album that's already done, because you're such a brilliant genius who's went to a studio and made. Like, I'm not telling you. I guess everyone got all pissed at Daniel Ek like last year when he was saying, you know, artists can't disappear for 4 years anymore and expect platforms like ours to help them, or at least to have the mechanisms of those platforms help. And I was like, wait, why is everyone so angry? Essentially what he's saying is just write and record music. Isn't that what we all want to do? And again, you don't even have to do it differently. Go make an album and then release the songs iteratively.
And there is, I think the idea, again, because I'm a guy that thinks about it from a framework perspective. I think all of us, ideally, who've been, sorry, Dylan, we're leaving you out a little bit here. I know the three of us have all put out records in the past. I know ideally when I walk into putting out a record, in my head, my intention is I'm going to get this done. I'm going to have 5 months once it's done to do the promotion, to get everything out. And then, 5 months later, I'll have the release show. And inevitably, I am driving down to CD, to disc makers in Philadelphia.
The day of your release show?
Picking up the day of the release and driving back.
Yeah.
Can I tell you the best advice I ever got on that score was to not book the release show until the box of CDs arrives on your doorstep. And it is the hardest thing to do. The self-control is really, really difficult to summon when you're so excited about a record. But you need as much time as it takes to get a tour or a good show on the books. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to wait that long. It'll be 3 or 4 months. It's like, yeah, you need that 3 or 4 months to spend with the CD in hand promoting it, at least. Personally, my opinion is that an unreleased record is one of the most valuable assets that an artist can have. And I think you should sit on an unreleased record for a year and a half, because you have an unreleased album that you can use to shop yourself to managers, to agents, to publishers. You can take it to people who are in sync. People in sync don't want to release the songs that you put out 2 years ago on, Gossip Girl or whatever. They want something fresh. So if you're looking for an agent, you say, oh, well, I have an album. It's done. It's coming out, sometime next year. They see dollar signs because that means that there's an album release tour coming up. A manager sees a commission on an album release tour on an album release. Like, all of that is so valuable. So, I mean, it happens over and over again that artists will rush the release of a record because they're so excited.
And I think that it's a really, and not to really belabor the point, but to belabor the point, you should be making the most out of the work you're doing. It takes so much work to put out a record, to boff the delivery. It's like watching, an Olympic diver do something absolutely incredible and then belly flop on the bottom. It does not work in our favor to sort of take that tact. It's understandable, but I think you're absolutely right, Rebecca. If you can turn that 10-song CD into a month of releases where you're getting free promotion essentially from something you've already gotten done by releasing a song a month, and you still can release the record at the end of the year, that is a gift. I know.
I have thought about that too.
Go for it.
Pick me.
Go.
I will never, for as long as I live, release an album after April ever again. Unless I wake up one day and I'm Mariah Carey, and then I'll release an album at Christmas time. But I am a strong believer in first quarter releases when at all possible, January, February, or March. Because when you release an album late in the year, say like me, my first record came out in the November of 2004, and then I went on my little mini tour, which was like a kamikaze, collection of open mics and random horrifying shows. And then I get home, I work my job at Whole Foods through Christmas, and then it's January, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna send this out to blogs and magazines, and I'm gonna get some press for my new record. And I send out my press kits and this and that, and I start following up, and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, but we only review current releases, and this is from 2004, and it's now 2005. And I was like, but the album's only 3 months old. And they're like, yeah, but it's from last year. So I've seen that happen to friends. It's happened to me. Believe it or not, I made that mistake a second time. So in 2012, I released an album in September. And again, you release an album in September, you have September with a new album, October with a new album, November, everyone turns into Thanksgiving zombies and just wanders away from their desk for 6 weeks. And next thing you know, it's January. So if you release an album in September, you have like 8 weeks with a new record. But if you release the album in January, you have 12 full, glorious, beautiful months with a brand new record, which again, you've worked really hard on. You lived a lot of life to write those songs. It took a lot of time and patience to get them recorded. Give yourself the gift of having as much time as possible to present that new record to the world. That's my
I don't know. I'm from Boston. Thinking about February as a glorious month sounds really questionable to me,
Right.
but that's really sound advice. Otherwise,
It gives you something to look for in February.
Yeah,
a reason to uplift the month, right?
Yeah.
I've done that with events. January is a dead month near me, so I put a big old jazz festival in the middle of January, just so it makes the month a little bit better, right? So take that perspective.
So along those lines of pivoting it back to our wonderfully CGI backgrounded friend, taking a record and turning the release of that, now that we have this virtual platform, into an event in and of itself, a ticketed event where you can take that product. You've gotten 10 months of your release on Spotify. You've maximized its output there. Now you're having the concert that you do, all of your 10 songs, and run through the recorded version, the live version. You have guests, you do all of that stuff, and you sell tickets for it instead of just making it a general open. I'm trying to layer this up because I want people to start thinking about how to make all of the pieces, because it's not, as Dylan said, this is not an either or. This is, how do you make all of the pieces fit together in a way that makes your career a feasible and as profitable as possible? Yeah. Because God damn it, you should be making money because you're good.
In more ways than one.
Yes.
It's definitely, you put all this work into art. Like, this is what I started to love about working with artists, is they put all this work into the creative aspect, which I loved. And then they didn't know what to do with it, right? They have it, and then they're stuck with, how do I get it out to more people, or how do I monetize it, right? And that's obviously the whole point why we're all here. And so, the first thing that I've always helped them do is I let them make the music, and then the first thing that I want to do with that album is that's where Chris comes in with the Spotify and all of that and the streaming side of it. I want to put that out to as many people as possible in an experiential driven way, because events are going to allow me to connect and engage. So now that I've done all this prep work, I've created an album, I want to get it out to people in a creative and experiential way so that I can start, getting it out there. And then, because that's an event, right, we would monetize and ticket our album release parties and things like that. I've done several of those. We've done tons of them virtually. Because artists are figuring out, I can't tour. I can't even, for a while there, we couldn't even go, and they couldn't even go into their venues to do anything. And now what I'm telling folks to do that they've had all this time, now they recorded a bunch of stuff, and now they have albums because they've been stuck in their houses for a year. And they're looking to come out and do virtual and in person. So what I'm telling everyone to do right now is, literally, if you want to put on an album release party, is you don't even have to do it all virtual. You get a small, intimate crowd. You pluck those out of your Patreon because they're your true fans. They come into like a little recording studio with you, or a production studio, or what I tell folks is go to every single venue that ever hired you and ask to use their stage or their venue as your backdrop, so it looks pretty good. and then you put on a little experience that shows all of your hard work and do it in a creative manner, and then it just becomes one way that people attach themselves to you. And like you said, it's a super good point where events are a different layer of person than like people who are going to purchase your Patreon versus someone who's going to stream it. It's different layers of people, and I think using things like Spotify and free content and doing weekly free stuff, you sell them into your, a live event that you put on a little bit more production driven, or maybe bring in a couple of your friends to make it more than what you do every week. And then you use that to sell into your Patreon, and kind of becomes almost a sales funnel. If we want to get a little business talky here, it becomes a sales funnel. And so the pinnacle really is how can you get them to Rebecca's level? How can you get them paying you every month? Like, that's what you want. And buying your albums and things like that. So, I think doing all this hard work and putting together, and what I've done in the virtual space is not just a concert. I put on, I help folks put on productions, almost little mini movies, like an extended, music video almost that's performed in a live experience, just so that you kind of do it a little creative, kind of give people a little bit something different than what you're doing every week. And that exclusive experience, and then you ticket it. I'm always going to. I value my time. I worked hard on this project. I worked hard on this production. This ain't free, people, and investing in myself. So that's how it's just another form, and a way to display out, your hard work.
Yeah, I love all those points, Dylan. I think the idea that the way that you perform in some ways can be directed by the place you're performing or who you're performing to. One of the conversations I've been having with performers, particularly as we go back to the Patreon idea that, Rebecca was talking about, and all the wonderful work she's doing, this notion of these sort of diehard people that they might not even show up, but they want to give you money. It doesn't matter. Like, these are your fans. These are the people that are ride or die Lobe. And those are great. And the notion of doing a show in your bedroom, and being very informal can feel remarkably intimate to them in a way that is inviting and warm and giving. But to an outside individual, to someone that does not already have that relationship, that just happens upon Rebecca in her pajamas in I was going to say a messy bedroom, but it's probably super clean. I don't want to make any assumptions. There's a bad job on my part. But that kind of experience, it can be too intimate. It can be set up in such a way that it actually forces that outside, the people that aren't the super fans, the people that aren't yet in your community, the people that just sort of happen upon you, that can feel like you're walking into a private space. So there is a benefit to kind of walking through these tools. Go for it.
So what I'm taking from that is that there's a logic in making your public-facing shows as professional a presentation as you can, because you're going to be connecting with new audience members, and you don't want them to feel like they're just stumbling into your bedroom. But the people who are already in your inner sanctum are looking for that kind of intimacy. So, you host a pajama party show in your bedroom where you're playing, your guitar unplugged on your bed for your 200 diehard fans on Patreon. But then when you do a big ticketed show or a weekly free series or whatever it is you're doing that's more public facing, then you make sure you've got your lights set up. I mean, a little trick that I think it's overlooked a lot is make sure that people can see the instrument you're playing on screen. It's hard to do. I put my leg up on a trash can and jack my arm up weird, because when you think about when you're standing on stage at a concert, people can see so much visual information. They see your whole body from head to toe. They see you interacting with your instrument. And when they're watching you play a show and it's just from here up, they're losing so much of the visceral experience of watching music being performed that it's off-putting and they don't even know why. So anyhow, tons of little tips like that. But I have a lot of thoughts on live shows. I've obviously been performing a lot online during the pandemic. And I will tell you guys a secret, which is that I have not charged for a single show during the entire pandemic. And during my normal career, I always charge a ticket price. I've been playing for $15 to $25 ticket price a night for the last like 8 or 10 years. And I agree, I do value my time, and I don't ever play free shows. I don't busk. I don't play, restaurant gigs in the corner where I'm not getting paid or where the audience isn't there paying to see me. But in defense of free shows online during the pandemic, I love what Dylan was saying about it being an and thing. And I do think that at some point, for some special occasion, I probably will play a ticketed concert. But especially early in the pandemic, when so many people were out of work and the economy was in a really rough spot, it didn't feel correct to me to say, oh, if you want to hear my music, you have to scale this paywall. I just didn't feel good about it. And I've enjoyed playing free tips only shows. Now, I am a bit of a socialist, just a touch. Like on my Patreon page, I give everyone access to everything I make. And I have some people who pay me $1 for that and some people who pay me $100. And I believe that I believe you leap and the net will appear. I believe that people will pay what they can afford for the art that you're making. And that $20 to one person is worth less than $1 to another person who's on a fixed income and is counting pennies to be able to buy their groceries every week. And do I want to deny that person who only has $1 access to the music that I'm making and the art that I'm creating? Money is a weird construct, and I know that I have to deal with it to be a musician, and I do pretty well. I make a good living. But I just wanted to speak up if some of the, hey, your show has to be ticketed in order for you to show that you value your time. Like, there is another approach.
So I will in defense to your in defense. So I completely agree with you. So when I talk about monetization, it's not always direct monetization. I want to go indirect as well. So I might do things that the money's coming like I'm doing something now because it's going to make this action, and then I'll get paid, right? I'm doing a free show. So if you're looking at monetization only in X for $10, that's one way. Now I believe in free all day, because what free is going to get you is the reach. So if that's the objective and the reach can get you to more people, this goes back into my comment of it's a funnel. You got to get out to a lot of people. And then based on your content, based on your repetition, based on how good you are at the end of the day and how much people actually like you, then you can start to rabbit hole them down your funnel, as I call it, into paid experiences, into the side. So I think there's room for both. It just comes down to the experience you're delivering, and things like that. I am massively, I think, free. I put out all my content in general, like in my space of business, a lot of coaches put out their content, and it's, you have to pay me and all this. I don't do anything for free or for paid. I literally give everything I have. That gets me out to a lot of people. And then those people kind of whittle themselves down into clients that pay me a lot of money versus some money and things. So, you got to do that free stuff to get it out. That's how you get your attention. And then knowing what to do with that attention is where I think a lot of people struggle. That's where you can start using, Rebecca as you got to get that name out there. Then everything that we're all talking here can actually happen. But until you get out in front of more people, if no one knows who you are, you can't make any money. And free is the way to do it. So I'm with you. I'm with you. I just think there's times for both.
And along those lines, as it relates to free content, that even people like Dylan, who are selling tickets to live events, believe, if you go to the NERFA website, you will find, and I included this in the chat, a article that Dylan gave us on 10 tips for successful live streaming, in particular monetization and building a team and a bunch of other things. So it's a nice sort of checklist for people to check out. Rebecca, great point. And I realize, I think part of the reason why we're probably focusing a bit on the ticketed side is because it is a bit of an oddity in our community to see the ticketed event. And I see, I've seen some artists that are doing wonderful sort of regular fan base stuff have a difficult time sort of going from fan to community to audience and back and forth. And I think part of that difficulty is in choosing one particular format, that intimate format, which can work really, really well in a lot of different ways, but it might not be the thing that's getting, it's leading to sustainability, but not growth. So
I got a great tip the other day that I haven't had time to implement yet because it was just in a meeting on Tuesday. But someone in marketing recommended to me that I play like a 4 to 5 song Facebook show, being very mindful of sort of telling my whole story throughout the show, in really kind of plan out what to say in the breaks. It's like in one break I talk about my tip jar, in another break I talk about my Patreon, tell stories about the songs, like get people really engaged. And then with the specific goal of having that set live on Facebook and then drive retargeted ad traffic to it, so that I can continue making money off of the tip jar plugs in that particular show. Yep. And for me, I have 70, or maybe not 70, but like 30 or so old shows on Facebook right now, but I don't want to retarget to those because I didn't have this specific plan in mind. Mm-hmm. Those tend to be longer shows, but this is something that I'm going to be trying like probably next week. So if you see me pop on Facebook unexpectedly for a 20 or 30-minute show, that's why. And if you're not familiar with the phrase retargeted ad traffic, it does kind of make my skin crawl, but it is sort of the weird special sauce of what makes Facebook creepy and worth using. And basically, you can, in your ads, say anyone who has watched 30 seconds of a Rebecca Loby video, or even better, anyone who has watched a full video of mine on Facebook will then be served an ad to go watch this show. And that's all retargeting is. And I'm sure that there are people on this panel who know a lot more about retargeting than me. I'm just dipping my toe in the water.
I was going to pop in earlier and try. We've said funnel a few times. I wanted to try and define that because retargeting is essential to a funnel. But it's basically, a funnel is just a journey that you're going to lead someone through from a point where they know you, maybe not at all, maybe they're a total stranger, or maybe they know you a little bit. And the point of the journey is to get them closer to you so they take an action that's more beneficial to you. The closer they get, the more they'll pay, or the more actions they'll take on your behalf. And retargeting is totally critical to that, because in order for a funnel to work in the digital space, you have to know everything they're doing along the way. So you can either say, hey, this person, I've reached them enough times and they're not interested, they hate me, I'm going to stop spending money to try to win them. Or I know this person clicked on this link to Apple Music. Now I need to remember, well, you don't need to remember, your system that you build needs to remember, this is an Apple Music user. Don't spend Spotify allocated money on the Apple Music person, and you kind of just get them closer and closer. And the funnel is because you're hitting a lot of people at the top, and it's a numbers game. You're whittling it down till you get to your true core fans at the bottom. Hopefully that.
I think it sums it up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like another example of for how a funnel might work for someone like me is, or a singer-songwriter or a band, is to identify an audience that's might like my music, who has never heard of me, and to focus on people who are not fans of my music, and to send out a video of my music to those people, or me singing a cover song, because they're going to be more likely to click on that. Let's be honest. So then anyone who then watches that whole video might then get served another cover song video of me singing a different song by a similar artist. And then anyone who watches that whole second video might get offered, hey, click here to get a free record from Rebecca Loby. And by clicking there, then they're on my email list. And then once they're on my email list, they're mine. And then I can take them on that journey by building a relationship with them. And that's taking what they call cold traffic, which is somebody that you had no relationship with before, and turning them into a connection, a sort of friendly connection, and then ideally a customer. And then at the end, you're left with, at the bottom of the funnel, just this little group of people who went from like not knowing who the hell you were at all to people who are spending money on you. And those are really valuable people to keep track of.
Those are the ones you want. That's the pinnacle. I do believe the pinnacle almost starts at not knowing who you are, like watching your YouTube videos and free stuff, and then streaming your stuff on Spotify and Apple and all of those good things. And then how can you get them to come out to your live shows and your events, and then or like your albums might be above that. But then that pinnacle for every artist, I think, is having those people that almost invest in them. They want to see them succeed over the long term. And if you can get more of those, then the chances are everything else grows too.
Which is a really wonderful point, and sort of brings us to the last specific overall topic that Chris, you, Rebecca, and I talked about on Monday, which is not so much the how do I get money by asking people for money, either passively in the sense of tipping, directly in the sense of membership, directly in the sense of support this project, but rather how can I start collecting money for simply existing in a digital space, which is, we touched a little bit on that with Spotify, but there are mechanisms out there. We've got Spotify, we have YouTube, we have Twitch. Those are 3 different platforms that exist that aren't necessarily easy to commodify or to monetize, but they are systems out there that offer the opportunity, perhaps, to make money off simply the ingestion of your art.
I think there's an easy button for all that, so I'll just do a CD Baby plug. When you sign up your music for CD Baby, there's a couple check boxes that really, they set you up for the passive stuff that might be happening when your fans or just random person who likes your song for some purpose creates a video on Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, YouTube, Facebook, using your music. So that, again, that's like usage-based monetization. You're not going to make a whole lot if it's 13 people that make videos, but it's about volume. And so if you do have the perfect song, the perfect audience, whatever, the right combination where you are getting massive volume through social video monetization, you're set up to collect. Kind of the same thing on the streaming platforms. But what I wanted to say, I feel like earlier putting so much emphasis on Spotify might be discouraging for someone who's like, I don't have a lot happening there. And I will tell you this story. So I have a song. It's a collaboration. It reached 1 million streams on Spotify. I have made less money, less fans, less email capture. Like, it didn't do much for me. What did drive way more email subscriptions through my website was me building a funnel, which is kind of like the digital version of this cottage industry that NERFA, Folk Alliance type artists already know they're in. It's like, how do you apply being the cottage industry you are when you go town to town and meet a handful of people at a house show to what you do online? And maybe getting 1 million streams on Spotify isn't that important, because ultimately a lot of times those are passive listens that aren't really your true fans. And ultimately the 20 or 200 or 1,000 people who buy your CD or buy your t-shirts are way more important. So that's just my encouraging note, to not get so distracted by like, how am I doing on Spotify?
Well, and especially if, like you were saying, that the best way you can get traction on Spotify is to mobilize your current audience. And if you don't have a lot going on Spotify, working on building your audience is a way to, cycle that back, I think, to Spotify to mobilize those folks. Is your funnel active right now? Could we find it?
So the bottom parts of it are like, how do I say it? So I stopped running ads to it, but basically I built like a behind the scenes experience for my last album. And it's like a 5-day, you get an email every day, free to sign up. I was using video ads to get people into that. And then hopefully after 5 days of seeing behind the scenes stuff, they're more inclined to actually buy a shirt, buy a CD or whatever. So that experience is still live, but I stopped running ads.
If there was a landing page or something that people could go to like sign up, it would be great to see an example of the funnel.
Yes,
if you don't mind me putting you on the spot like that.
Let's see. It's not that. Hold on. Let me find a different link. Can we talk about something else while I Google my own damn page?
Oh goodness. The whole funnel side of things, I think, with music, if you're looking at passive ways to also monetize your music and things like that, I oftentimes tell creatives and entertainers to use their music as a tool to build their brand. Because, Rebecca is a bigger name than what the music she puts out. And she will be able to go on and leverage the name she builds herself from music to do other things. I'm assuming, music is a great thing that you'll always love to do. But of course, we want to diversify. So being able to use your music as a tool to build your name, and then you can monetize your name as a musician in all types of ways. Use that name recognition that you built from the music people know you for, and then leverage that into other businesses, other brands, getting brands to sponsor you because you have 800 followers on Patreon. Well, that 800 followers is very useful to a brand. You can then ask them for money in different ways. So always, I know this talk is about how to monetize your music, but also, I love helping folks and talking about how to monetize you, because music is just one part of you.
Mm-hmm. which is a really important thing to keep in mind overall, because it might be how we self-define ourselves, but for our audience, if our audience is there, I very rarely say I'm going to a. I'm trying to think of an album name to use an example, but like I don't say I'm going to a song show. I'm going to a Rebecca Loewe show.
Yep.
I'm going to a Chris Robley show. Is it Robley?
It's Robley, yes.
I've been saying Robley.
I never correct anyone. Don't worry.
You never corrected me.
I never correct anybody on my name either.
I gave up as
better
well.
ways. Yeah. We do have three tough to pronounce names.
We've got Chris's super secret society sessions show thing up here. Should I hit play on this little video, Chris?
Oh no, you don't have to. I mean, I could just say like I was sharing a music video. Most musicians, when they put out new music, they want the whole world to know about it. They want the stories behind the songs broadcast like as far and wide as possible.
I love this.
But not me. I've been keeping 5 secrets about my new album, and I only want to share them with you.
Chris, are you doing okay?
This is your invitation to join me on a strange journey through the making of an album called Secret Society Sessions. And I will tell you over the course of 5 days some things that I've held pretty close about myself and about this music. And at the end of those 5 days, you'll even have the record for free. It's going to be like one of these things. Remember these from when you were a kid? Tin can telephone. You hold one side up to your ear and pull the line tight, and I'll be whispering into the other end. If you want to join this secret society, click the button, pull the line tight, hold your ear up, and I'll see you in there.
That was amazing.
I'm sorry, Chris. You told me I didn't have to, but it frankly was so intriguing. I hit play as you were saying, "Don't do it."
Yeah,
I didn't.
It was supposed to be a secret, man.
That's how a top of the funnel video should be, to be honest.
Yeah, so there was one layer higher in the funnel than that, which was just me sharing 1 or 2 music videos on Facebook. And if they watched like 75% of that, they would get that video, which would then lead them to that page, and then onwards they go.
Did you build the funnel yourself? Like the programming of it and whatnot? That's great. That's really cool. Are there any tools that you used to build it?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I shouldn't say I built them. I used ClickFunnels, which is, you know, a kind of landing page funnel assistance tool. I'm building one now just on Squarespace. So, I mean, you can do it through your own sites and you know, obviously Facebook Ads Manager is pretty crucial for how I did it.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, ClickFunnels would be like an advanced one, I would say. Just and then you, like you said, you can use Squarespace and some of the cheaper ones, but if you're looking for like advanced stuff, ClickFunnels is a really good one.
Cool.
Pricey.
Pricey though, yeah, pricey.
Yeah.
I got in when I
lead
think it was
pages.
$19, and then they upped it to like 100 something.
It's 100 now,
Jeez,
but
whoa.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
Leadpages.net,
Squarespace is perfect.
I think is like $40.
Lead Pages is another good one. There's tons of good ones. It's really about just having something. It could literally be, you know, I always hear folks talk about how it should be like this amazing built out elaborate one, and I'm like, it goes back to the point. If your brand is strong enough, if they like you enough, it could be a white page with black text, and they'll opt in and they'll give you their info. To me, it always goes back to every decision I ever make and want to help people make is about them. And then the music will come, right? The album sales will come, the streams will come, the bookings will come, the doing your own events will come. The beginning foundation of that is how can you sell yourself? And I think that's what a lot of artists struggle to do the most, because they can get passionate about their music and that's what they're passionate about. But oftentimes they miss out on selling themselves and selling their brand. And then they it goes back to our funnel. So I'm glad this conversation went this way, because this is cool, because this is what I help folks do, and this is what I like to do.
There's a lot
I can't
to
be
geek out
creative.
about,
Yeah, it's a lot.
too.
This side of the business is like, that's the business side that, like I said, you know, what I wanted to help bring to this industry, and why I talk about it in so much. And I've done workshops for, like, when I used to run, because I've done folk festivals and country festivals and jazz festivals and stuff, and I'd always love collaborating with the artists and seeing what they're doing. And I'm like, hey man, how are you monetizing yourself, right? Because it's more than just, it's always going to be more than music. If you look at the mega folks at the end of the day, and if you talk to them and look at what they're doing, their music sales are usually their least income that I know, right? Like in my world of folks who I can somewhat, yeah. So a funnel and just another a name is, it's like Chris said, an amazing word for it is, it's a journey for your customer, right? Taking them from not knowing who you are and taking them through that journey of, they know you a little bit, they listen to your song, then they tell your friends or their friends, then they buy your album, then they buy your merch, then they go to your events, then they pay you monthly. It's literally like a funnel. Taking someone on, I love that word of, it's a journey for that customer is really what a funnel is. It's just kind of a visual representation of that.
Yeah. I hope that helped. I do realize we kind of, we talked about it. We're like, yeah, the funnel really, and then we got into the nuts and bolts right after it. So
That's
I
where my brain goes automatically.
No worries. Susie, thanks for asking the question. So that more or less, that was really what I wanted to have the discussion about tonight. And man, do I want to thank the three of you so very much for being part of this. I feel like we've been really lucky with the Nerfa sessions here to have active conversations amongst people about things that we're all sort of passionate about, but trying to think about in different ways, because I think that's the challenge. Like that, as we think about what the COVID experience really has been for most of us, it's not been changing our goals. It's been realigning how we see ourselves in this particular set of circumstances to realign to achieve the goals that we still have. So I really appreciate it. I think you guys brought a wonderful set of perspectives. I want to allow you guys, give you all a chance to plug something, because I know you're all doing something. And I don't know if we want to do this by Not It, or if someone wants to volunteer. Either way, I'm totally cool with it. Anybody?
What are we doing? We plugging?
Yeah, plugging.
Oh, I always feel uncomfortable in these positions.
So
I'll go
Dylan's
first. Yeah, I'll go first. Whatever. So yeah, I mean, the really the only thing that I would have to plug, or in this case, is really just because that's usually just, hey, just hang out with me on Facebook and things, is ViewStub. You know, everything I'm talking about with ticketing events or even free events, tip jars, things like that. You know, we have an entire all-in-one solution from event ticketing or registration, at least, all the way to the actual video hosting and things like that. You know, and in doing those concerts, it's I didn't touch on this, but I want to make people understand that even though I talked about, you know, making sure it looks produced and professional, it's not that hard. It's actually very simple, as you guys, you know, he mentioned in the beginning, StreamYard and things like that. Little simple, very easy to use platforms like a StreamYard and a ViewStub give you the power to then go on and ticket and do a really cool, you know, what I call video experience, and then allow you to take that into your in-person environment and things like that. So that would be really what I have to plug, is just viewstub.com, which is the live streaming platform that I work for.
All right. Well, I would argue that, you know, I started listening to this, so you also got that thing to plug, dude.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do a show. So every Friday, live show every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. I do a show called Event Masters, where all sorts of topics, everything to do with events, event planning, event management, how to perform at events, how to book bigger acts, smaller acts, everything in the middle. I've done it all and want to continue doing it all. And this is just kind of my one way of helping as many people as I possibly can.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. Really appreciate having you. Loby, Chris, either one of you guys want to volunteer for next?
Sure. I always want to plug my Patreon page because I feel like it is sort of the center of my creative universe. Everything goes there first, and I have the most direct connection with folks there. I keep the cost of entry low. It's $1. You can set a cap at once per month, and that gets you access to everything that I do. If you want to pay more, you can. If you want to pay $1, please do. But a big Patreon event that I'm doing this month is in collaboration with my friends Megan Slankard and Mouths of Babes. And we are performing a concert on Zoom on Sunday, March 14th. It's at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, where they live. And we'll all be doing like an intimate singer-songwriter in the round thing. We're good friends and big fans of each other. It's going to be really fun. And since we're all three promoters on Patreon, we are offering a show poster signed by the three of us to anyone who joins any of our Patreon pages between now and March 14th. And Megan made a really beautiful, it's called the Spring Forward Show, and made a beautiful illustration of a woman diving into a bed of flowers. And anyone who becomes a patron of all three of us by March 14th will get an enamel die cut acrylic pin with the diver lady diving into the future. So if that interests you, I'd love for you to sign up for the show, and I'm going to put a link to that in the chat for you.
Please do. That sounds fantastic.
It's going to be really fun. I just love those ladies too. They're all so talented. It's great.
You've been doing a lot of really great collaborations. Not to plug a project that I'm guessing isn't particularly active right now, but Nobody's Girl was doing some really wonderful stuff.
Oh gosh, no, it's amazing how active a harmony-based trio has remained throughout the pandemic. We're in touch constantly and recording
just slightly out of
videos.
sync.
And yeah, well, we've been doing collaborative videos using the app Acapella, which is maddening in its own way. But we also are doing a monthly live stream as a group called the First Friday Show. So we're the first Friday of every month on the Nobody's Girl Facebook and YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Chris, you want to?
Yeah. So let's see. Let me first plug CD Baby. If anyone needs to get their music on 150 or more streaming platforms, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, Apple, CD Baby would love to help you with that. We also bundle in with our distribution package, sync licensing, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook monetization, distribution to TikTok, and then for a little bit of an upsell, we'll also collect your publishing royalties if you're a songwriter. So that would be cdbaby.com. We also have the DIY Musician podcast and the DIY Musician blog that I help manage, which are both CD Baby affiliated educational resources for musicians. And then on my personal side of things, I think next week going to mastering with a new record, which I'm very excited about. It's my sort of bastardized understanding of traditional folk forms and ballads and such, but then laid over electronic beats and synths and stuff like that. So yeah, go there if you want to sign up for my list and stay informed about when that's done. I'm going to take my own advice and finish the record next week and then sit on it for a little while, put out some singles.
Do you mind, Chris, just because I feel like I'm trying to upsell each and every one of you from your descriptions. You released a co-write on Instagram last week.
Yes.
That would you mind if I shared that with the world?
No, please do. This is my proudest achievement.
I honestly believe that it is an earworm that should be in everyone's ear. So here we go.
My daughter will be psyched.
To be good, it's nice to be nice. It's nice to be polite, but it's good to rock, 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 rock.
That was perfect.
I also think all songs from now should be 20 seconds long.
TikTok would agree with you.
Yeah.
That was really well done. So I want to thank you guys. I want to just quickly let folks know from the NERFA side, we do have that Women Take the Lead panel coming up in a couple of weeks. I do want to sort of reiterate that we have regular peer groups, and I think it's really one of the most important things that you can do for yourself right now. Mental health has been a real struggle for a number of people in our community. Give yourself a chance to at least talk to folks, get out there, and both of the groups I found to be really warm and welcoming, and just it's a good place to feel some connection. So please check that out. If you're an artist here and you're in the Northeast region, and I know I say that and people are like, I don't know, am I in the Northeast region? Because they ask me so often, I made a map. If you're in that region, anywhere in that region, please submit a video. If you've done any video since July of last year, submit the video to the Spotlight program. I'd love to get some money in your pocket and get some eyes on all the good work you're doing. So as it relates to the peer groups, don't be afraid. Please go and check them out. If you have enjoyed this, if you haven't enjoyed this, scan this little thing with your phone. If you know how to do that, or if you don't, you can do it this way. You just have to write things down as they're moving. We have a survey. Yeah, it really works. This is fun. I've done this now literally in the last 2 sessions.
I just want to try it.
And all of my panelists have been like, "How does this? Oh my god, it works!
It's working. Survey Monkey.
it.
I'm
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
I'm gonna give us really high marks.
Awesome.
I'm gonna steal this idea. Honestly.
Yeah.
I might build. To be honest, I might just try to figure out how I can build this into ViewStub now. I like this idea to like put your own
Put
QR
up that
code
thing and have a QR code that goes straight to the tip jar or straight to purchasing merch.
Yeah, I've done that.
Sweet.
We have that coming.
Yes.
Another plug. Yes, you're gonna be able to throw your e-com merch and everything into ViewStub and sell it. We'll have interactive overlay. You throw it up, they click on it, automatically pays for your merchandise. That's called intuitiveness. So,
and to make sure that we're being clear and saying everything is good and not only one thing is the answer, because whenever anyone comes to these things and they say, well, just tell me the one thing I have to do to make everything work, there's no such thing. You should listen to this again. If you enjoyed it tonight, listen again. The fact of the matter is all of these things can be pieces of your career. Do not think of your career in a single, I do this one thing and that's going to be what works. We all have to sort of figure out the different ways that work for us. And I really hope everyone is able to find success. Last thing, right as we sign out, I do want to recognize in particular the Boston community lost a dear friend this week, Mr. Hugh McGowan, who every human being I know that has played in Boston has had him at their show championing them. I can't speak.
close enough.
I know hundreds of musicians that have stayed at his place, that have been welcomed into the community. He is a wonderful human being. He unfortunately was a wonderful human being. He passed away earlier this week from what we hear, potentially complications from COVID. But such a wonderful, wonderful human being, and we will absolutely miss him. We'll end with him playing sort of his most ubiquitous cover that we heard probably 500 times a year if we were paying attention. Everybody wants to rule the world, and we miss you, Hugh. Thanks for the music. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks for everyone hanging out tonight. We really enjoyed it, and we'll see y'all soon.